A city once walked by emperors, warriors, and philosophers now lies in ruins. But 2,000 years ago, Ephesus was a powerhouse. One of the largest cities in the ancient world, rivaling even Rome. Its streets were lined with marble, its theaters held crowds of 25,000, and its greatest treasure, the Temple of Artemis, was so massive that it dwarfed the Parthenon. Traders from across the Mediterranean filled its bustling markets, while scholars studied in the Library of Celsus, the second largest in the Roman Empire. Yet today, all that remains of this once thriving metropolis is broken stone and faded glory. How did a city that housed one of the seven wonders of the ancient world rise to such greatness? And what led to its downfall? Ephesus, now a site of crumbling ruins in modern-day Turkey, was once a powerhouse of the ancient world. Bustling streets, grand structures, and a city life that rivaled Rome, it had it all. But time hasn't been kind. Today, where mighty marble columns once stood, there's mostly rubble. Where merchants once called out their wares, there's silence. But rewind a couple of thousand years, and Ephesus wasn't just thriving, it was one of the most important cities of its time. Sitting on the Ionian coast, Ephesus had the perfect location. Trade ships docked at its artificial harbor, offloading goods from Egypt, Greece, and beyond. Roman engineers designed it to be efficient, with roads and aqueducts leading straight into the city. Step through at the Grand Port gates, and the first sight would have been the Arcadian, a massive colonnaded street named after Emperor Arcadius. At night, oil lamps cast a golden glow over the marbled pathways, lighting the way for traders, officials, and scholars. Today, what's left of the Arcadian barely hints at its past glory. Broken columns, shattered stones, and weeds pushing through cracks. But back then, it was the gateway to one of the greatest cities in the Roman world. Walk further in, and the heart of Ephesus unfolds. The marble road stretched through the city, linking key landmarks. One direction led to the Library of Celsus, an architectural masterpiece that once held over 12,000 scrolls, making it the second largest library of the Roman Empire, only behind Alexandria. Its intricately carved facade still stands, though it's missing its upper levels. In its prime, scholars and philosophers gathered here, reading by natural light that poured in through the tall windows. The library wasn't just a place for books, it was also a tomb. Gaius Julius Celsus, a Roman governor, was buried beneath it, a rare honor for a man who left a lasting mark on the city. Ephesus didn't just thrive on knowledge, it was built for entertainment too. The Great Theater, capable of seating 25,000 people, was an engineering marvel. Plays, public meetings, and even gladiator fights took place there. In the 1st century AD, the Apostle Paul stood on its stage, defending himself against accusations that he was ruining the local silversmith trade. Why? Because Christian converts had stopped buying miniature silver statues of Artemis, the city's patron goddess. That moment, thousands of angry locals, a public trial, the weight of religion and commerce colliding, unfolded right there in the massive stone arena. Today, the Great Theater remains as one of the best preserved structures, its seats still intact, its stage still standing. But the crowds are gone, replaced by tourists trying to grasp what this place once meant. Beyond the theater, Ephesus had something even more famous, one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. The Temple of Artemis wasn't just a place of worship. It was a symbol of the city's wealth and influence. Supported by 127 towering columns, it dwarfed the Parthenon in Athens. The temple attracted visitors from across the Mediterranean, including Alexander the Great, who once offered to fund its rebuilding after a fire. But Ephesus refused, not wanting another ruler's name tied to their greatest monument. Today, almost nothing remains except for a single standing column, a ghost of what once was. But Ephesus wasn't built in a day, nor did its importance start with Rome. Long before the marble roads and grand libraries, Ephesus was a city of shifting rulers and cultures. Evidence suggests humans lived in the area as early as 6000 BC. By the 10th century BC, Ionian Greeks arrived, led by the mythical prince Androclus, who, according to legend, founded the city based on an oracle's prophecy. In the centuries that followed, Ephesus saw Lydians, Persians, and eventually Alexander's successors shape its fate. The city's allegiance switched hands multiple times, but through it all, it never lost its significance. By the 2nd century AD, Ephesus was at its peak. With a population possibly reaching 200,000, it was among the largest cities in the Roman world. Aqueducts supplied fresh water, gymnasiums and bathhouses provided places for exercise and relaxation, and the agora buzzed with trade. The Ephesian elite lived in luxurious terrace houses, complete with intricate mosaics and heated floors, a level of comfort few could imagine for the ancient world. But like all great cities, its fall was inevitable. The first blow came in 262 AD, when the Goths invaded and burned much of the city, including the legendary Temple of Artemis. Ephesus never fully recovered. Earthquakes struck, silting from the Cayster River choked the harbor, and the trade routes shifted. By the Byzantine era, what was once a major port city had started to shrink. The Great Theater, once filled with roaring crowds, was abandoned. The Marble Road, once bustling with merchants, grew quiet. By the time the Seljuk Turks arrived in the 11th century, Ephesus was little more than a shadow of its former self, and by the 15th century, it was gone. Today, visitors walk among its ruins, trying to piece together the past. They see the remnants of the Library of Celsus, the towering facade standing against time. They climb the seats of the Great Theater, imagining the voices that once echoed there. They stand before the lone pillar of the Temple of Artemis, knowing that once this was one of the greatest structures ever built. Ephesus may have fallen, but its story never truly ended. Beyond the library, the road stretched past tombs, memorials, and the extravagant homes of the city's wealthiest citizens. One structure stood out, a towering octagonal tomb, believed to be the final resting place of Arsinoe IV, the younger sister of Cleopatra. The story of her death is one of betrayal and power struggles. After fleeing to Ephesus to seek refuge in the Temple of Artemis, she was hunted down under the orders from Cleopatra and her lover, Mark Antony. Her crime? Simply existing. With her dead, Cleopatra erased a rival and secured her grip on power. The tomb still stands today, though battered by time, its once grand structure reduced to ruins. But Ephesus wasn't just a city of politics and ambition, it was an engineering masterpiece. Fresh water was delivered through an elaborate network of aqueducts, some stretching over 25 miles. This system fed fountains, bathhouses, and private homes, keeping the city running smoothly. Roman engineers designed it so efficiently that for centuries, water flowed seamlessly through the streets, reaching even the farthest corners of the city. Today, fragments of these aqueducts remain, some still standing, others buried beneath centuries of dirt and debris. No story of Ephesus is complete without the Basilica of St. John. Built by Emperor Justinian in the 6th century AD, it was one of the grandest churches of its time, said to be the final resting place of St. John the Apostle. Its towering columns, intricate mosaics, and high domed ceilings reflected the influence of the Hagia Sophia in Constantinople. For centuries, it overshadowed the now ruined Temple of Artemis, becoming the heart of the city's spiritual life. But history never stays still. When the Seljuks conquered Ephesus in 1304, the basilica's days were numbered. Eventually, as the Ottomans took control and the city declined, it too was abandoned, its once grand structure left to decay. Today, only parts of its walls and foundation remain, a reminder of how power shifts and time erases even the most magnificent creations. And then, there was the Temple of Artemis, the crown jewel of Ephesus. This was no ordinary temple. It was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, a structure so massive and so breathtaking that ancient writers struggled to describe it. The Roman author Pliny recorded its size at 425 feet long and 225 feet wide, nearly double the dimensions of the Parthenon in Athens. It had 127 towering columns, each standing 60 feet high. These weren't just plain stone pillars. Many were covered in detailed carvings of gods and mythological figures. Statues of Hermes, Hades, and Persephone lined the entrance, and the entire structure gleamed under the Mediterranean sun. The temple's story was as dramatic as its size. In 356 BC, a man named Herostratus set fire to it, hoping to be remembered forever. The Ephesians, outraged, vowed to erase his name from history. But ironically, that vow ensured that he would be remembered for all time. The temple was rebuilt grander than before, but its troubles weren't over. In 262 AD, a Gothic invasion left it in ruins. Slowly, piece by piece, it was stripped away. By the Middle Ages, nothing remained but its foundation and a single standing column. The rest was either taken to build other structures or lost to time. Despite its destruction, the temple's influence shaped the entire city. Ephesus was built around it, and for centuries, Artemis was the heart of Ephesian identity. Even today, archaeologists estimate that only 10 to 15% of the city has been excavated, meaning much of its history is still hidden beneath layers of earth. Walking through Ephesus today is like stepping into the past, one that still holds secrets waiting to be uncovered. The Great Theater, once buried in rubble, was painstakingly dug out during the 20th century, revealing the massive structure beneath. The Marble Road, once lost to history, was cleared to expose its ancient pathways, complete with one of the world's earliest known advertisements, a crude engraving pointing travelers to a nearby brothel. Every uncovered stone, every reconstructed column brings a piece of this lost city back to life. Ephesus may have been abandoned, but it was never truly forgotten. Its ruins tell a story of power, ambition, destruction, and survival. And who knows, with so much still buried beneath the soil, maybe the next great discovery is just waiting to be found. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the ancient city of Ephesus, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Have thoughts on Ephesus or other ancient wonders? Drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.